Hello, everybody. This is Andrew at the Ark of the Covenant. So, got a new video here. This is to do with the architecture of the Samaria of Zion Church. So, it gets pretty long and complicated, and there's a little bit of what would you call it, geopolitical history that I want to cover because it puts it in context, and it was a context I didn't really have myself fully. So yeah, I've learned quite a lot on this little mission. So let's go. The trail has taken us now to Ethiopia, but I feel that it is not our destination or our destined action. Remember, every time you see a word that ends in Asian, you are missing the C in there. It should say action. The word refers to action. Okay, so I think it's just going to be a stop along the way, point of interest. The buildings at the Church of St. Mary of Zion tell a very interesting story. I'll try to paint a brief outline of the history leading up to recent tragic events at that site. Firstly, Ethiopia and neighbouring Eritrea were once just one whole tribal land region. In fact, most of Central Africa and Southern Africa, I believe, were just known as Ethiopia at one stage before they were divided up into more like tribal states. The border, of course, then is relatively modern and the disputes are ongoing. Noticeably, there's been a major conflict there from 1998 to 2000 and an ensuing squabble since 2000 until a peace agreement was finally reached in 2018. The church is an important site for Ethiopian Tewahedo Orthodox Christians. It's a bit of a mouthful. So the site is confirmed to have been destroyed and rebuilt twice in its history since first being established in Ethiopia by a Christian preacher from Lebanon called Frumentius. And this was in approximately the 4th century AD, but no one seems to have an exact date about when that happened. Okay, but in fact, he was ethnically a Syrian/Phoenician Greek man who was born in Lebanon. So that's quite a mix, isn't it? He definitely had an interesting life, I'm sure. So every leader of Ethiopia must be blessed with a service at this church, or their leadership just isn't recognised. It's not officialised until this church service occurs. And then the adjacent smaller buildings inside the grounds are said to contain the Ark of the Covenant, specifically that the contents of the Ark are the original stone tablets handed to or created by Moses for the 10 Commandments. However, as with most things in this realm, the truth about that is unclear and many alternate theories exist. And of course, mainstream scientific media has debunked claims of a physical ark at this location. In fact, I think at any location. Women are not allowed into this church. It is said that it is Mary's church, and she is the only woman who is allowed to be in there. The acknowledged position surrounding the Ark Association is that Mary is worshipped there as the Ark. Hey, kitty. That she alone is the symbol of the agreement with God, a new agreement with God, and not Jesus himself. Okay, so that's a different thing. One theory is that upon the death of Jesus, the Jewish people broke the original covenant with God. And Mother Mary, who carried and delivered Jesus, is then symbolic of God's new agreement with everybody on earth except the perpetrators of that crime. So, what is the link between Mary of Zion in Ethiopian faith and Zionist Jewish people? Well, firstly, there's this. Z ion ist. Our IO, our infinite cycle, our creator, hides inside many, many common words. And there it is. So, the code says that Zionist is the return of the infinite cycle of energy and is an infinite symbol of beginning. And that seems to make a lot of sense to match the concept of Zionism being the promised land, or the right to, have earth to lord over, I guess. So this is the interpretation, I guess, is what kind of varies in that regard. But in an original sense, by the code, before all of this geopolitical, stuff gets involved, is that it's just simply saying it's a returning of the infinite cycle, right? So if energy was lost, right, it's come back, and that this return of the energy is a symbol of beginning, which it is. So it works really well. Now, secondly, this is what Christian Zionism means. Right? So I've taken this straight from Wiki, because I didn't know this myself. Now, Christian Zionism is a belief among some Christians that the return of the Jews to the Holy Land and the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948 were in accordance with Bible prophecies. Some Christian Zionists believe that the gathering of the Jews in Israel is a prerequisite for the second coming of Jesus. The idea has been common in Protestant circles since the Reformation that Christians should actively support a Jewish return to the land of Israel, along with the parallel idea that the Jews ought to be encouraged to become Christians as a means of fulfilling biblical prophecy. Now, apart from the fact that these two ideas obviously are in conflict with each other, it's very interesting, and it made a lot of sense to me in explaining. So, as I was saying, the Reformation era of time, it matches, everything happened in that era from 1400 through to 1700. The King James Bible and Shakespeare and the Reformation process, and just the installation of all these modern languages as we know it, all happened in this time period, and many, many, many more things. So again, we have a connection to Christians, Protestant Christians, during the Reformation period, suddenly changing and saying that they should actively support a Jewish return to the homeland, or to the land of Israel, I should say. So this is, and that if Jews became Christians, that it would be a way of fulfilling a biblical prophecy. And so if you think that these Jewish people persecuted against Jesus and had him killed, the Jews becoming Christians would be like a form of repentance, and they would acknowledge their ways, thereby enabling Jesus, God, however you like it, to return. So it's quite interesting, and it works really well. So it just makes me super suspicious, as I already am, that yet again there's this connection, and these people are secretly working together in the background. Okay, now if you consider how many Christian majority nations have governments which fully support the existence of Israel, it should become quickly apparent that if there is animosity between Jews and Christians, it's only for the general public. Because the functional truth appears to be that the Catholic Church has been quietly supporting Israel, and Christianity, large institutions of Christianity, have been quietly supporting Israel. Well, not quietly, sometimes quite vocally, but mostly through government mechanisms. Right? They support the Zionist Jews and the State of Israel by national governments. Right? The code says that Zion means return of infinite cycle of energy. What do you think? What is your opinion? I think it's all just a case of them having their eye on us, but we're not allowed to have our eye on them. The American Zionist movement website claims that Ethiopian Jews are yearning to return to Jerusalem. And you just got to change the R to an S there to see that it's very, very close to Jerusalem. So, now, oh really? They want to return to Israel, do they? And well, I guess the American Zionist movement hadn't heard about the reproductive sterilization of Ethiopian Jews who were airlifted to Israel in mercy missions, which were meant to save them from persecution. That's right. Upon saving these Ethiopian Jews, the Israeli government promptly injected them with an unknown substance, which is suspected to have led to a massive collapse in reproductive capacity, effectively ending them. And this was reported on and acknowledged by the media in Israel. And these are the type of people who govern our world. These are the people who are making decisions for us. So that's a bit of the geopolitical history there. Obviously, there's a few good links coming through to the rest of the theory at large, I guess you could say. So let's get onto the building so we're not taking too long. Okay, now, if we have a look at this building, just check here what's going to be our best. Yeah, we'll just start here. Okay. Excuse me. So you can see in the structure the reference to three, and there being three aspects of existence: a positive, a negative, and an action which forms a bond. So positive, negative, and bonded state. So now when viewed from a satellite, I'll pull this one up. It's a bit fuzzy, as you know, Google things are a bit rugged. They're not the best. We can zoom up. No, that's the biggest it's going to let me go. Sorry, guys. Right, but you'll see here that the building has a square footprint overall. Okay, same as a pyramid, has a square-based footprint. Okay. But when viewed from the side, we can see that it's composed entirely of arches. Each side of the building features two small arches and a larger central arch. Positive and negative, plus a central bonded action representing balanced state. Inside each arched section are three doors, 1, 2, 3 in the middle, or three windows on the outside ones, 1, 2, 3. Again, the same pattern is used all over the building. The center arch has 5 windows above the 3 doors. From above, we see it is built with a square base supporting a circular dome. And this is trying to represent for us the firmament and the dome, the circle and the straight line. On one side of the building is an extended portal entry. This is this extended section here. This profile, we're leaning that way, but this arch is actually just flush. It's just because it's higher up in there, it looks like it's sticking out, but it's not really. This is the end that just has the single extended entryway or portico entry. So the extended portico entry or portal, okay, that's where the word comes from, exit, which is likened to that which can be found in most ancient pagan burial mounds and circular places of worship. Okay, a circle building needs an entry point, and we usually, you can put as many as you like, we often, especially for burial mound purposes, just put one in, one out. Okay, so it's focusing the flow of energy through that one opening, one division in the structure. So if we go back onto the side view, and I'll pull up another picture here, this one now, we'll get some assistance. I'll pull myself off the side a bit there for you, and let's zoom up a little for you. Can I get this one up? No, that was not going to go either. Anyway, you should be sweet there. So you can see the dome is supported all around by these short, thick, straight bars, right? They're reminiscent of the Egyptian inorganic energy glyph. These are these short bars here. It can be a single, that is single bar, meaning the atomic matter itself, the atomic energy and matter. Okay, so these are the particles that are represented by a short straight line, the inorganic aspect. And then when you had two, it would bring imbalanced inorganic matter, and if you have three, it means balanced. So it was most common to see the three sticks used, and there was also some instances where I found the two-stick imbalance symbol twisted on a 45-degree angle, which I'm not sure as to whether that's to do with numerical counting or not. I don't think so, because it's embedded in text script. So I think, yeah, as a way of representing it. So they're mostly symbolic, but they do seem to provide some structural support, these bars. Okay, but what it's doing, it's symbolizing, again, the straight line of organic matter supporting the circle of life on top. Right, you, of course, can bring in all of your dome references, spirit and air and spirituality. Of course, they're all completely relevant and applicable. So back to the top view now for this building, and the dome is a circle sitting inside of a cube or a square. Often we see, okay, this is basically this circle in a cube, or circle on a cube. It's been associated with satanic worship. Oh, sorry, Saturn, and some people say satanic worship. But it should be noted that the central pilgrimage place for the Islamic faith is to visit a large black cube in Mecca. So, and now we've got our cubic lattice theory going with neon. So the sinister theory of Saturn cubes, that they are sinister. It may have become sinister, but originally worshipping the cube, it wasn't sinister. So we just acknowledge that everything had duality, everything had positive and negative aspect, and therefore division was good and division was bad, and unity was good, unity can be bad. Everything has duality. Right, so the architecture now of this building, you can see it just worships geometry and the union between the straight lines and the circle. The union, of course, then between the inorganic and the organic energies, the two aspects of life. Again, the positive and negative aspects, but then there's the inorganic and the organic. So everything has these two conditions, and then individually these represent imbalanced states, but then put them together in equal portions, or whatever proportional ratio you need to achieve balance. That's what it's all about. So we don't want permanent balance either. We want balance changing between imbalance and balance, and in a effective manner, the way that nature does it. So this church is also, curiously, parked firmly at the base of a very large, well, relatively pretty large, it's almost the size of the whole town of Axum. It's a large dome-shaped mountain, very circular. So it seems that it was also Frumentius who built his church next to rock of a dome. Okay, so there's also the reference in Peter, the rock built his church on the rock of his faith, I believe that was the quote. Okay, so this building church on rock, it's our reference to cube and inorganic and everything. This is, again, building your church on that which supports life. Okay. The church's main opening is curiously, I noticed, aligned to solar west. It aligns slightly north of magnetic west, and this would account for Ethiopia being south of the equator. And so it means that the entry and exit to the church faces directly at the setting sun. And the church sits nestled up against the western side of this large dome mountain. So that means that it would be shaded from direct sunlight in the morning. So is this a reference to Eve? So if you've been following along or check back on the previous posts, our Eve word links to most strongly to evening and eventual, and that then in turn is related to the setting of the sun. That's where the origin of that word eventual and even means setting in the west, setting sun. The final thing that I'd like to mention for you guys today is the two-tone blockwork on the outer walls. And I'll go back again. So we've got another very, very strong reference to the inorganic, okay? The lower grey layer all along the bottom, setting all the way along this line here. The entire lower portion is in a grey block, and this will be representing again the firmament, the ground, the inorganic, and the arches above representing the positive energy of life, the beneficial energy. So these symbols here, these rising suns, this is where we get our capital D from, right? And our B is, join these two together up here, and there's your capital B for beneficial energy. And so it's like it's repeating itself there. We'll get to the repeats, the double S's, the double P's. Okay, it's just they're indicating, acknowledging that the concept is in both respects. It's the inorganic P, the organic P, and if it's an S, it's the inorganic symbol, it's the organic symbol, and by doubling it in the word, it acknowledged that what your statement encompassed both aspects. That's my working theory on what's going on there. So, so this is the tribute, and you're going to see this half, this semicircle, this rising sun, and in this case, perhaps at this church, it's setting sun. Okay, but either way, evening or morning, this sun setting moment was very important to us as ancient people, and rightly so. Okay, so obviously we don't arch our D in exactly the same way, but then again, nor do we don't form them properly anyway, and things have been done for a matter of convenience, but also in some ways there's been some deception involved. But mostly the thing is they knew what all these symbols meant, and no one else did, and it just basically stayed that way, and that was fine because no one really questioned it, I don't think. So the three windows, again, we can represent them as being trees. Okay, like our fountain is a tree representing the interchange between the ground and the sky and the spirit, between the waters below and the waters above. So this tree is like our interface, it's our portal, and you've seen in mythology and stories of little doors in trees where elves and whatnot would disappear down into the ground, down into the earth, and so trees, threes, trays, and tries. Okay, they all mean the same thing. They all refer to three. So you can see that they're placed. See, they're rooted into the ground. Now, sorry, I'm pointing with my finger. The windows, they're set down into the ground, right? So they represent the interchange, the interface. But So do I get this? Yeah, so I have. I've already mentioned that. It's the origin, these semicircle on a straight line patterns. It's our B, it's our D. I've done a few posts on it recently also, obviously, while I was putting this one together. Did some other little bits as well. So, and of course, this makes a D shape because, it's a dome, and it's D for dome, and it's D for dome, and D's a dome shape. So there you go. It all hooks together nicely. All right, guys. Thanks again for spending some time with me. I hope there was some cool, interesting information there for you. And yeah, we'll keep plugging away. Thanks for everyone's contributions and comments. Really appreciate it. And that's all for now. Be good to each other out there, guys. We'll see you again soon.